All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. This is Mayday Monday for January of 2022, and this is happens to be the 15th Mayday Monday podcast that we've been able to do. I hope that that you guys have tuned in. You know that each month we take a deep dive into the life of a firefighter who made the supreme sacrifice, right? Made the ultimate sacrifice. We look at him and learn more about him or her, and find out about their life, what kind of person they were, and hopefully then we get into the fire department, the city that they're from, or the county they're from, and then we talk to anybody who will come on and talk to us about the incident, about the man, about all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. Real quick, let me show you this month's what this month's post looks like. If you guys haven't already seen it, all right, that's going to be the post you see. Again, we're highlighting some construction concerns that you'll see when we talk to our guest here from Philadelphia that really kind of factored in to the situation there in Philadelphia. So with that, before we get dive in too much, as we have over the past few months, I want to take a moment and just acknowledge the firefighters that we have lost since the last time we got together. Since the last time we had an assistant chief in Missouri was struck on a highway. Chicago firefighter had a medical emergency at the scene of a fire. We had a newly promoted lieutenant in the FDNY was found dead in quarters. Or I shouldn't say last night, because we tried to videotape this a couple days ago and we had an issue with some Wi-Fi, but there were two firefighters killed on a highway in Wisconsin when their truck was struck by a tractor trailer. And also, you guys have known the LA County firefighter was killed at a structure fire just last week. And our thoughts are go out to all of those people that we lost. 2022 is not starting off well for the fire service from a line of duty death. And again, we're filming this after the Philadelphia fire that killed. How many was that, Devon?
I believe it was 12.
13, 12 people in the row house. And then, of course, you guys were following the New York City high-rise fire. Just a horrible tragedy there. And we're thinking about those firefighters who are going to be living with this stuff for a long time, and they hopefully they can move on. And also, of course, anybody involved in the deaths there. It was a bad year again for 2020. 2021 was a bad year for line of duty deaths. We saw almost 140 firefighters killed in the line of duty. Most of those were COVID deaths. Most of them were COVID related. But there are still members being killed in basement fires, on highways, and by heart attacks. Those things that stay up there on our radar as far as deadly for us. As a refresher, I wanted to get into this as a refresher from last month. We looked at the death of firefighter Christopher Roy from the Worcester Fire Department. In that podcast, I had a chance to talk to several members, 3 members of the Worcester Fire Department. They were good, really came on and talked a lot about their department, what they've done since they lost firefighter Roy. Please take some time and look at that. I want to share a video here again. This is from the DC Fire Department. Again, remember this was last month, where we looked at what happened to Roy up there, and ultimately they removed him from a high ladder technique, right? They used a ladder, put it over top of the window, used some ropes. They actually fashioned a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage system, pulled him up and lowered him down. If you've been with Mayday Mondays for a long time, you know we've touched on this before. We call it the high ladder rescue, but really it's a pretty basic technique. And here's a video. This is from some friends in DC. We practiced this not too long ago. They even came up with a kit that they're carrying on some of the trucks. But this one's really basic. Watch this. Let me give it a couple minutes. You guys watch this. I think you'll like it. pretty easy technique there. You guys probably have practiced that before, but remember that we have to keep practicing these things because those are perishable skills. And if you're not ready to put that into place pretty quick, it could take a while. And that firefighter that's in distress will be waiting for a long time for help. So, get out there and practice that. If you guys, if you want the video, it's been attached to the fire engineering post that we put out about Mayday Monday. If you can't find it, reach out to me. I'm tcarroll@louisa.com. I'm sorry, louisa.org. And I can get that video to you if you want that, or some other stuff, or anything with the Mayday stuff. You can reach me there. All right. So that was last month. This month we want to talk about Philadelphia Lieutenant Matt LeTourneau. Matt, a friend here at the Mayday Mondays. I had a great opportunity to meet Matt, and when I got involved in the ISFSI basement fire stuff, we went up there and watched, participated in some of the UL burns, and Matt was part of that. He was one of the fire attack members, and he was a pretty active instructor out there in Delaware County. So I got to meet him out there. With us today to talk about Matt, talk about the fire department, Philadelphia, and the incident is Devon Richio. Devon, you want to take a moment and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and what you're.
Sure. So my name is Devon Richio, captain with the Philadelphia Fire Department. Right now I'm riding a desk. I am the Homeland Security officer. But prior to that, went to the Fire Academy in 2008. Was assigned the Ladder 13 out of the academy. Spent a couple years there. Got promoted and got sent to the Fire Academy for 2 years, where I taught a couple cadet classes. After that, went to Engine 50. Got promoted out of Engine 50. Spent 6 months at Engine 11 on South Street, and then transitioned into my current role as the Homeland Security officer.
So you were a lieutenant at 50?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I've
How
been
long did
lieutenant
you?
there for probably 2 years at the time of the fire.
So how long did you spend at 50? 2+?
3 years, from 2016, and then I was promoted in about 2019.
What part of Philadelphia is that in?
Engine 50 is in North Philadelphia. Called
North
the Bad
Philadelphia. I got you. I was just there, and I have to let you know that I have a real problem with Philadelphia. Right, I had a bad incident with Philadelphia Eagles in DC at a football game. Yeah, I'm sure there's like people who are probably like, "Why, I can't believe you're talking to somebody from Philly," because of that. So I've got some bad memories when it comes to Philadelphia. But anyways, with that being said, I was just up there with my kid. She did a triathlon. I'm sorry, she did the marathon, the Philly Marathon. What was that? That's like South. That was in South Philly.
It kind of spans all over the place. It starts kind of in Center City, and it runs northwest up through the park, and it touches a lot of different neighborhoods in the city.
Yeah, pretty good race. I know she was really happy. She got she did a personal best, I guess, on that race, and she was pretty happy with how that went. So why don't you, if you would, messed up here. If you would just tell us a little bit about Matt. I know Matt was at the time, right? Was a 11-year vet of the Philly Fire Department.
Right. Yeah. So he had 11 years on, and he was assigned Engine 45, which is a perimeter company for Engine 50. So before that, I actually met Matt probably in 2004, 2005. I was still in high school, and this was before Matt got hired, and he was one of the instructors for an EMT class I was taking. So he left halfway through the class to go to the academy. So it was just one of those things. We're both from Delaware County. So it was just one of those things like, oh, it's cool, Matt's going to be a city fireman. And then years later, we reconnect. So I met Matt back then. We worked in the same department, obviously, so I would see him around. When I was assigned at the fire academy for those 2 years, we had a class, a City of Chester Fire Department class came through the academy, and Matt was one of the adjunct instructors that worked for me. So we worked together from there, and then once that class was done, he went back to Engine 45. I finished up my rotation at the academy, and then I got assigned Engine 50, and then we went from good friends, instructors together into kind of, I won't say rivals, but there's a friendly rivalry there between the companies. Everybody wants to be first in, and you don't want to you don't want to give another company an opportunity to take your fire. So it was a professional rivalry, I'll call it, between the two companies. But he was tough to work with because you had to be on your game all the time. You weren't ever going to catch him. So you had to be on top of your game. His company, the guys that worked for him, they knew their job. So it made you a better fire officer, just knowing that if you weren't on top of your game, Matt and the guys from 45s, they were coming quick. So it made you better. Sometimes you'd sit there and be like, what's this guy doing? Like, how is he, he's just always there. He's always in the right spot at the right time. And it's just tiring. You just want to have that one easy job where no one's breathing down your back, but there he was. So we had a good professional rivalry going between the companies. Then it was good to work with. You knew if they were coming second in, you knew you had a good company coming in behind you, or if they were first in and we were second in, we knew that we weren't going to get much work because they were going to take care of what needed to get done.
So everything I've met a bunch of other guys too, right? There's a few guys from the DC Fire Department that were from there, from the Springfield volunteer up there, right? So and again, I know those guys, and if he's anything like they are, right? Because they're more my generation than that. If he's anything like they are, yeah, you had to be on your game, and again, it's not a bad thing, right? It's always good to be on your game, and that's motivating that you have someone next to you. So would you 45 and 50, are they busy companies when it comes to the Philadelphia Fire Department?
Yes, absolutely. Two of the busier companies in the city.
A lot of fire duty. And what do you think would be? Is it more 2-story rows, that kind of stuff?
2- and 3-story ordinary construction row dwellings are the bread and butter throughout the city, but specifically those two locals. Back in yesteryear, factories and stuff like that, textile mills and things like that. But now it's the dwellings, the housing stock that we're seeing a lot of fires in now.
So a couple things I've read when researching this was that again, I think that throughout the fire department, and he will truly be missed, was one of the quotes I saw. Another quote that he give you the shirt off his back. He's one of those guys, and he wanted to know everything, right? So, like you said, he wasn't going to sit back and be content. He was always going to push himself and push others around him. Like I know, he was involved. This is the top right picture. I took that while we were doing the UL burns, and you can see he's down there, as one of the line guys that was waiting to go and put the fire out during those experiments. So again, from what little bit of time that I know him, and he definitely was. He would be one of those guys you could look at and say, wow, he's going to be something in the Philly Fire Department as time goes. Much like it looks like you are, Devon, moving up into as a captain and so on. So it sucks. It's a lot of times we do these Mayday Mondays, and it seems to be that more often than not, right, these guys that we're losing are definitely shining stars in the fire service who are going to make an impact. And I think that Matt did make an impact in the short time that he was there.
Oh, he absolutely did. He absolutely did. I mean, you couldn't find somebody on the department that didn't think that Matt knew what he was talking about. He was one of the best that the department had to offer. And I don't have to tell you, you know him from the UL burns and stuff like that. So people around the country knew just a small piece of what Matt was.
Yeah, no, that's it's a shame. So as much as it's a loss, I think it's also a blessing that we were able to meet him, and now hopefully he's gonna a little bit of legacy from that will be I'll carry that on, you will, and so on. So that's good. Let's talk about the city of brotherly love, and I say that again with jest because my connection with Philly wasn't very brotherly lovish, but at any rate, big town, one of the biggest towns in the country. How many people do
Uh,
you are in Philly?
I think we just got passed by, is it Houston or Phoenix? But it's a little unfair because we're kind of confined to our boundaries and they can keep absorbing uh, people up. So it's a little unfair to compare the two. So we might be the sixth largest city now in the country.
Sixth largest, and it's in that population center on the East Coast, right? How far? What are you like? 2 hours from New York, 2 hours from DC.
Yeah, probably smack dab in the middle of New York and DC.
Again, it's an old city, right? There's a lot of history there. What would you what is some of the hot cool neighborhoods that you hang out in Philadelphia?
Oh, I'm an old soul now, so I don't get out that much in the city. When I was a new fireman, Center City was always a good spot, and there was, Passyunk Avenue corridor. I grew up in South Philly, so I kind of stayed close to there in South Philly and then Center City. But I mean, for fire duty, West Philly, where I was a fireman at, was one of the busier spots. North Philadelphia is always a busy spot. Kensington area. I mean, there's unfortunately there's fires everywhere, but I mean, as a young motivated firefighter, that's what you want to see. So I actually just compiled the run numbers for the year, got those sent out today, and it's pretty remarkable the amount of fires we're going to still.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be pretty hopping. I do follow, Chief Teal on the social media and stuff, and I think that you see like how many runs you guys do, 1,000 runs a day, and there's 3 to 4 or 5 working fires. It's definitely not slowing down in your town. So one of the things I saw again, like there's a lot of firsts for Philadelphia, right? It's had the first library, had the first hospital in the country, had the first medical school, the first national capital, and the first university, and the first zoo. So there's a lot of firsts going on there. A pretty cool town. I'll reserve my distaste or distrust, but it's good. Visit Philly. It's pretty cool. Let's talk about the fire department.
Sure.
How many guys do you have?
I believe we're at around 2,800 or maybe 3,000 uniform. We're at 63 stations, I believe. My numbers might be a little off, so forgive me for that. I think we have 63 stations, 23 ladders, 25 ladders, 13 battalions, 3 divisions. And then there's the whole, we have 3 special operations companies, Rescue 1, and then Squad 47 and 72. We have the 2 boats, the Marine units. We have the airport contingent, Engine 78. There's about 4 or 5 different units that respond from there. Yeah, and so we run engine and ladder companies. An engine is an officer and 3, a ladder is an officer and 4. Most of what we're using with ladder companies are tillers. Each division has a tower ladder. We just got the new Seagraves that you can see in the upper right there. Engine companies are kind of run of the mill. You're just basic engines. We have squirts in each division.
What is that? I was wondering what's a squirt? What's a squirt versus a squad versus a water tower?
So a squirt was the manufacturer specific designation. So now we have water towers.
Okay.
And as far as I know, the difference is the placement of the boom. If the boom is a rear mount, it's a squirt. If it's a mid mount, it's a water tower. I could be wrong with that, so don't hold me to it. Our squad companies are just a special operations capable engine. So they have a first in local, they respond to fires and EMS runs, and then they also have the special operations component as well.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing that as big a city as you are, you get away with one heavy rescue. Does it go on every fire?
So the SOC companies, the three SOC companies share. They have their own boundaries, so it almost follows the division boundaries. It's a little different, but so each has their own local that they're responsible for, their own special operations local.
I got you.
And then if it goes all hands, they'll pull in the second company as well.
So all hands gets two special ops companies. So that
Yeah.
rescue one is what, Center City?
Rescue one's at 4th and Girard, so they're a little north of Center City.
Yeah, so they get to go to north and south, huh?
Yeah, and they do shoot out west sometimes. On like the upper part of West Philadelphia, they'll get out there as well.
What's their staffing? One in five?
Officer and 5.
Five, yeah. Yeah, good. No, so what about ambulances? Do you guys staff ambulances, or is it private, or?
No, so it is, EMS is run by the fire department. So we have a mix. We have some dual medic units. We have some where it's one paramedic and either an FSC, a fire service EMT, or an EMT advanced. And then we have some basic units in which firefighters will backfill, or firefighters will staff some BLS units. So we have a mix of everything. I think right now we're up to 60 medic units during the day.
Gotcha. No, it sounds like, like I said, I know you guys are busy. I've added that picture down there. It looks like you're doing some modern changes and stuff. Definitely renovating some of the firehouses, but keeping the old part too. That's pretty cool. Old firehouse there.
Yeah,
What are
that's
they
engine
doing? They're just adding a
37.
couple bays. Who's that?
Yeah, that's engine 37. And their slogan is tightest in the city because they have a modified apparatus where grab handles and mirrors are pulled in so they can flip through those doors on the left. So they got to the point where the apparatus weren't able to get smaller than, I believe, 96 inches. So they had to come up with a new design. So they kept the original firehouse, this picture in the bottom middle. The firehouse is still there, but they transitioned the apparatus floor to that new portion on the left. And I actually drove past there a couple days ago on my way home from work. And I'm sure you're familiar, DC, it seems like they have the vertical doors that open up to the side. And this is the first firehouse that in the city that I've seen them at. So, and it looks pretty sharp. So it's cool to have, the old nostalgia of the old firehouse. But it's cool to see the touch of the modern times in the new station as well.
Yeah, no, keeping the tradition, and but then giving the guys some creature comforts with some new stuff. No, I get it. That's what we got to do. All right, let's go into the fire. This was on Colorado Street. Is that right? North Colorado Street?
Yes, 2400 North Colorado Street.
So at the time you were assigned to engine 50.
Yes.
And engine 50 was second due on the second arriving, or would it be second due on the box?
Yes. So with all things being equal, yes, we're second in on this box. However, about 3 or 4 minutes before the box came out, we were dispatched on a shoe run, an EMS run, to 15th and Lehigh. So we got that. It came out as a code, a cardiac arrest. And usually when you get the codes in the morning, it's either a legitimate code, it's somebody that's stiff because they've been passed all night, so they're stiff, or it's complete BS. So we're pulling down Park Ave, and so engine 50 kind of faces a street. You can pull right out of the engine doors and you're going right down Park Ave. So we'd only made it 2 or 3 blocks away from the station when the box came out, and I had the guys screaming in the back, "That's us, we're on it." Usually I have a little leeway, I have a little flexibility on if it wasn't a code. If it was something like a fall or something minor in nature, I have some flexibility as the officer to say, replace us on that shoe run. We're going to take the box.
Yeah.
This being a cardiac arrest, I couldn't do that. So I told the
Yeah,
guys,
no.
I said, get dressed.
We've all been there. Yeah, we get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So we actually saw Medic 22, which is our medic unit in the station. They crossed and passed in front of us when we got to Lehigh. So I told the guys in the back, get dressed. I'll run in and see what's up. If we can get out of here, we'll get out of here. If not, it's just our time. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. I ran inside. It turned out to be a seizure. The person was awake and the medic unit was there. So I asked them, I said, hey, we got this box. They said, we got it. We're good. And that's when I replaced, when I went over the South Fire Band and said, we're available, put us on the box. And that was about 3 minutes after dispatch. So very short lead time because we were already on the piece. So it only delayed us ultimately 30 seconds to a minute from when if we would have been dispatched initially to when we got there. So
what, back to the day that we had just seen a snowstorm, right? How much snow did you guys get up there?
I don't remember. I mean, there was snow on the ground. I don't remember when the snow was from. I just remember it was very cold. There was so the snow had been there for a while. And you can see in that upper right, that street is ice. There's 2 ruts where you can get a car through, but it's all ice. And that kind of comes into play later, not only the cold, but just the ice being down there. So actually that was our training for the day. I'd come in and I'd seen something on Instagram. It was a picture from New York and they were using road flares to thaw out a hydrant.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, we got in and we said, hey, let's try it. One of my guys brought up antifreeze down the barrel of the hydrant. So we were going to try that as soon as we got out. Now this run came in our shift technically starts at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but we relieve at 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. So
you guys do 12-hour days, 12-hour nights?
That's what we're paid for. And our old schedule was 10s and 14s, 2 10-hour day works, 2 14-hour night works, all for 4 days. So we still follow that schedule, even though you're getting paid 8 to 8.
Yeah.
So guys would come in at 7, check the piece out, go over the equipment, any housekeeping stuff we have to do, talk about what we're going to do. So by 8 o'clock, 8:30, we're going over the plan of the day, what we're going to do that day.
Yep.
And just real informal, just an informal roll call of, make sure all the guys are in, any goofy stuff that comes up since the last time we were in. So we kind of had a plan of what we were going to do for training. After we got our first run, we were just going to take that first run and stay out, pick up the meal, and try and hit some hydrants and see if this thawing technique worked. But then we got the shoe run, and then the shoe run turned into us taking this job. So we left the shoe run at 15th and Lehigh, went west on Lehigh to 17th Street, and came south on 17th Street. So if you see where those 2 blue dots are at the top where 17th and Dolphin intersect?
Yeah.
Right there. So on the southeast corner was a hydrant. And now if you go further down to where that little green block is, right above where it says Caribbean, there's a vacant lot right about there. It looks like there were about 3 or 4 houses that were demolished there. Because it was so cold, the smoke was real low and it was pushing across the street. So I thought that the fire was on that side. I thought, oh, this is great. There's a big vacant lot here. We're going to be able to stretch through here, get in service in the rear of this place. Now, I wasn't thinking that the address, it was 2447, I believe it was the address. Some numbers get mixed up, but the house was on the west side of the street. And this block was the only block, probably the only block in the city where there's no vacants. It's an intact block.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we took a wrap at the hydrant at 17th and Dolphin and pulled down to that opening, and we looked through, and the row of houses was intact. So we quick disconnected the 3-inch and drove around and made a right on Susquehanna to head west, and stopped at the corner of Susquehanna and Colorado. Now there was a hydrant, There was a hydrant, I believe the northeast corner of Susquehanna and Colorado that was frozen. And then it turned out the next 3 hydrants that my driver tried were frozen as well. So 500-gallon tank, we have 7 or 8 lengths. I want to say 8 lengths, 3-inch from the piece to the front of the fire dwelling. So we charge that. Once we get water flowing, we only have a couple minutes of water.
Is this is you guys here flowing water?
That's engine 45.
So 45 did the same thing on the other end of the block?
Yes.
So
yes,
I mean, I guess when I was there for the marathon, it was very tight, right? You're thinking, how can we get fire trucks down even without the snow? Like some of these places are that tight, right? Do you do that a lot where you stop at the end or ride the curbs or?
Usually, well, it's tough to do that. I mean, if this job happened in the summer, you might see somebody pulling down that street. I don't think anybody a chief would have a problem with anybody pulling down that street in the summer. I think with the amount of snow and ice, that dictated a lot of the apparatus placement that day.
All right, so 45 is on Dauphin and North Colorado.
Yes.
And
yeah,
you guys are
wherever that where that mini market is. That's about where
up here.
Engine 45 and ladder 14 are, and we are on the south side of North Colorado and Susquehanna.
Is ladder 14 stationed with 45?
Yes.
Okay, so they came in that, and that's what we're looking at. Isn't this from Matt's camera? That picture?
The top right, is from Matt's helmet camera. So that's him walking south down Colorado Street.
And so then this is a picture of, on the bottom left is a picture of the building there, and then
the red brick building.
And then the picture on the right here is, you can see there's forcible entry operation. Was it tough getting in?
Yes. So we walked down the street right as they'd made entry. So there's the front door, and then there's a short vestibule, maybe 3 or 4 feet, and then there's another interior door that opens up into the living room. Now there was heavy hoarding conditions in this house, and it was in a bad state of disrepair. So once they'd got in, they encountered the civilian who was deceased with significant burn injuries. He got passed out because there was no room to maneuver around anything. So he had to come out before they could make the push in. And that was kind of the first thing that I saw coming up. And it's kind of one of my things, the 3 things to think back at. That was kind of the shock factor. The first thing that I saw approaching this job was the civilian in the street. And it was kind of, you ever see Black Hawk Down?
Yeah.
You remember the scene where the guy's hand gets blown off and the guy's in the middle, he's in the middle of an engagement, and he stops and he looks at it, and the movie kind of freezes for a second.
Yeah.
It was similar to that. You looked at it and you paused, and then you had to snap out of it quick and get back on. So that was the first thing we saw. So after that, 45s makes entry into the dwelling. We're a couple seconds behind them, getting water to the gate, flaking our hose line out, and trying to get into service. We also want to give them some space also.
But looking at it, and I hate to use these terms, right? Ordinary or bread and butter, but it looked pretty. We've been this before.
Bread and butter all day.
Yeah,
all day. We've fought this fire hundreds of times. Guys on that fire ground fought that same fire hundreds of times, and we fought condition-wise. We fought worse fires since then. Yeah. So from Jump Street, it wasn't, nothing jumped out of that fire and said, "Don't come in here." You know what I mean? Yeah. There was nothing met us at the front door and said, "No, don't come in here."
Yeah. And we know this place, right? I can tell you, like you said, you got a door, you open it up, you got another door, you open it up, you got a couple steps, there's the stairs. I go to the right a little bit, I go back to the kitchen, right? I got a living room in the front there behind those 2 windows. Kitchen, I go up the steps, when I get to the top of the steps, I make a right because there's a little landing, and I go to the front or the back.
Yep.
I mean, it's the typical row house, center city, inner city row house. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So
absolutely.
this is, I think they said this is a picture of you coming out of the left. Is that right?
Yeah, that's me.
So this is, it looks like you guys got a knock on the fire. I had some water on it.
Yeah, between the water that 45s had and the water that 50s had, we put a knock on it, but it wasn't extinguished. There was just enough to darken it down. And then that's when we started running into the water issues.
And it was hydrants, right? The hydrants were frozen.
Right.
So so at 45 and 50, you got 1,000 gallons. It's obviously a pretty good fire on the first floor. You say you got it darkened down, but now it becomes trying to find hydrants. What do you guys do? Did you send like the third engine to go stretch and find a hydrant? Does your driver try and go find one, or is
So
there
that's
a
what.
procedure
So
that you guys kind of do?
at this point, all companies we have all hands in service here. So SOP for us is that each company will establish their own water supply. Excuse me. So my drivers, we pull up on a hydrant. He goes over radio and says, "I got a bad hydrant. I'm looking for a second one." Now he's running around trying to find a second one. His second hydrant is frozen, and it got to the point.
What would he do? Would he stretch a 3-inch over there to that other hydrant?
At
Because I know
that
it
point,
sounds
yeah.
like you have them. You have pretty abundant hydrants.
Right. So at that point, he's stretching 3 inch. If we're within a length, the way we run things, if we were within a length, I expected 5 inch. But once this snowball kind of starts rolling down the hill, I just want water quick. So at a certain point, I'm just checking my notes here. They at about 9:15. Or no, I'm sorry, 9:14, Battalion 8 requested 2 engines to help with water supply. So he wanted an engine to come help us establish a water supply and an engine to go help 45s. So they ended up, I believe it was the third hydrant that 50s hit, turned out to be a good hydrant. And actually the hydrant at 17th and Dolphin that we took a wrap on was a good hydrant too. They found that 45s used that later in the fire ground.
So you said your SOP is that everybody gets their own water supply,
Yes.
and do you typically have a supply you from a hydrant, or do you just wrap it, hook it up, and then take whatever hydrant supply?
The first engine can stretch back to a hydrant, can take a wrap or stretch back to a hydrant. They'll 9 times out of 10 take the front of the fire building. But then our second, third, and fourth engines should be on a hydrant, should be on an actual hydrant.
Oh, that's interesting. And then you stretch a line from there?
Yes.
And just every engine, so you get 4 engines on a box, is that what you're sending?
Yes, 4 engines, 2 ladders, 2 chiefs.
And so you'll basically have 4 independent water supplies, and then 4 independent hose lines too?
Yes.
Gotcha. That's a lot of water, and I know that's kind of what we did. We would pick up the third due engine, pick up the first due engine, but the third due engine would then bring a line from there. So we definitely fast, and you get some active, a lot of water there, a lot of firefighting capability pretty early. All right, let me go back to the screen share here. Let me see where we are in the. So 909, this is you coming out. You guys put a knock on it. You ran. You didn't have any more water, so you came back out until you got a positive supply, or you got something.
Right. Yeah, it came back out, dropped our packs. I believe at this point, 45s is trying to play water in through the window, and you could see it was just a weak. All they were getting was just whatever water was in the 3-inch that they had on the street. It was a very weak stream, but they were just trying to flow water. their tip had frozen, and Matt told their tip guy to take the tip off, and they were just using they were running
Bail,
with
yeah,
that breakaway tip with just the slug. So 934 is after the collapse. So
yeah.
we go back in, probably takes us probably 10 minutes. I could probably look and see when we go back in. But it was
So
about,
you go
go ahead,
back
I'm
in.
sorry.
You go back in, and when you went back in, what did you have fire on the second floor, or did you not know yet?
Yes, there was fire on the second floor. There was fire on the second floor before we came out. So yeah, the fire was up on the second floor, and 45 was trying to hit that with our exterior hose line, but it wasn't having much effect. It didn't have a lot of pressure.
You had companies in the rear too. Who
Yes.
in that it was who goes there? Third and fourth due engine, or
Yeah. So usually your first and third will go to the front, and second and fourth will go to the rear. On this instance, the chief wanted engine 50 in the front to back up 45s. So we kind of quick audible on that, and everybody kind of adjusted their positions. So in the rear was engine 13 and who's engine 34 were the two companies in the rear, with ladder 12, the ladder that's stationed with engine 50.
so they had. Did they make entry, or did they just cover exposures in the rear?
They didn't make any entry into the fire dwelling. They were knocking down fire that was impinging on the exposures. There was some fire in the breezeway, and in the roof line later on in the fire that they were knocking down, but they never made entry into the dwelling.
So, these solid row houses, there really wasn't any extension to either exposure, right?
I don't believe so. I don't believe during the initial firefight, I don't believe that there was extension into either dwelling.
So at this point, we have you have a couple guys from 45 were on the first floor, and then you 50. Did you take one of your guys up there, or because I know I'm reading it, it looked like there was definitely some like, all right, you guys go in now, you guys go in, and
Yeah,
you ended up
it
with
gets
like
a little
different people.
confusing. So once 45s got water, 45s got water before engine 50 did. So they get water, they're back in for either, I can't recall if they went in or if they didn't even get to go in because they were out of air because they had been inside before we were. So I take engine 45's line in with ladder 12's search and rescue firefighter. We go inside, we have their hose line for a couple minutes while Matt and his tip guy are changing their packs out. Tip guy comes back in, relieves ladder 12's pack off of the tip. So I'm in there with 45's guy for a little bit. And then Matt comes in. We do a real quick face to face. I kind of tell him what's going on. There's so much stuff in here. Like it's not really hot. I can stand up. But there's just so much junk on the floor that I'm slipping and sliding. Everything's starting to get icy now and everything's wet. So it's just easier for me to crawl because I don't want to, I'm standing up and I'm kind of, staggering home.
Yeah.
So I come out and I go change my cylinder. I go walk back to the piece and I talk with my driver, Eddie, trying to figure out what's going on with our water. And 59s is just showing up to help him get water. Change my pack out and I come back. And that's when the chief says, Dev, I need you to take your line to the second floor. So, all right, no problem. Now I have the search and rescue firefighter from ladder 12's pack, and I have another firefighter from engine 45. They hear the chief say, hey, get a line up to the second floor. And they're like, all right, we'll go. So they grab the line. When I dropped my pack, I dropped it in some runoff. So my straps, my buckles were frozen. So I'm trying to get them undone. They take the line and I'm maybe 10, 15 seconds behind them. We come in the front door and I bump into a firefighter from the rescue that kind of points me towards the steps. I get up the steps and bump into the back of the firefighter from engine 45. And I can hear the Durrell Pace from ladder 12. He's hitting fire in the back room. I can hear it. I can hear the water. Shuts it down, and he moves to come back to the middle bedroom to knock down fire there. I can see his feet are even with my head. I'm on the steps, and he's on the landing. And the other firefighter, Owen, is humping hose line up to him so he can maneuver. Right then is when Jarrell says something. I can't understand what he says. He screams something. I have no idea what he says. Owen turns to me and says, back out, and starts coming down the steps. What Jarrell said was, the floor just dropped. So as he said that, Owen says, back out. He starts coming down the steps. I turn, and now we're facing each other. I'm facing Owen, his back's against the wall, and place comes down. So I have some structural member comes and hits me on the shoulder, and it's pushing me and Owen into the wall. Our faces are pushed together. Our masks are coming off separated. And it was kind of surreal when it's happening. You're like, there's no way this is happening. So you're trying to think of like, what's going on? Like, how do I get this to stop? So when it happened, you kind of do this self-inventory, and you're like, all right, well, what's going on? What's going to hurt me the most, the fastest, and how do I stop it? So I was thinking, all right, I'm not hot. So that was a huge relief, was that I'm not burning. I know I have air because I just got a new pack. I was able to resituate, our mask. We were good. And the biggest thing was whatever was on my shoulder pushing us into the wall. So it's like, all right, if I can get out of here, if I can just find some space, I know I'm on a stairwell, there shouldn't be anything on top of me. I'll be good. As I'm thinking through all this stuff, I hear Jarrell call Mayday, but I don't hear it over the radio. I hear him screaming. So he gives a great Mayday, but nobody heard it except for me. And he calls the Mayday, and I'm like, I don't hear it over the radio. I don't hear. We hit our emergency buttons. You get that tone, and then you get the open mic. I didn't hear that tone go off when he hit it. So I think, all right, well, if I can hear him, I can get to him. So I try to turn, and that's when I realize I'm stuck. Like, I'm not going anywhere. So that's when I hit my button and give the first Mayday. It's garbled. You can't understand what I'm saying. But FCC, our communications, they picked it up downtown, and they communicated that to the chief's aide, who communicated that to him, that somebody had activated the emergency button. So I didn't get an answer. I hit it again, and gave another Mayday, said that we're on the second floor and I can't find the location of ladder 12 pack. Because I knew I had Owen right in front of me. I knew Jarrell was up there. I heard him talking, but I can't get to him. While this is all happening, the rescue firefighter grabs Owen, pulls him out, grabs me, gets me out. I don't remember if I went through a window, if I went through a door, if I walked, if I crawled. I just don't remember. I just remember being out. So I'm outside, and they're telling me, like, what happened? I said, I don't know where Jarrell is. I don't know where Jarrell is. He was able to. He says the floor dropped. He came down. His foot was pinned under some structural members. He was able, and his mask was off. He got his mask back on, called the Mayday, pulled his foot out of his boot, was looking around, saw some light, and the guys in the back said that he just appeared in a doorway or a window. So he got out, he cleared his Mayday. And initially I was like, all right, like, we dodged the bullet there. So I didn't realize that Matt was inside, because the last time I saw Matt was on engine 45's line with Owen. Owen was inside with me. So I assumed that since last time I saw Matt, he was with Owen. If Owen was outside, Matt was with Owen, Matt was outside. Matt had taken another firefighter in on a hose line. So I didn't really put two and two together until a buddy of mine, the ladder 12 officer, came by and he was like, hey, have you seen Matt? And I was like, no, I haven't seen him. And like, they can't find him. And that's when it was Command Engine 45 officer, no answer. Command Engine 45 officer, no answer. So after that, I was sitting on the steps, and EMS likes to poke and prod you and all this stuff. And I was kind of like, just stop touching me, like get away from me. And I put my coat on, and they're like, you're not going back inside. They found him right away. He was, I mean, they made and from quick in the matter of securing the load to lift it off of them without. They were concerned with, when they went to lift, they were concerned about the negative force going down and causing a collapse of the first floor into the basement. So I wasn't inside when any of that happened. I kind of turned myself into a gopher until I collapsed in the middle of the street, and they were like, "All right, you're done. You're out of here." But yeah, I think about 30 minutes after, they were able to extricate him.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really good stuff in the report, in your Philadelphia's internal report, and even the NIOSH stuff. I know Chris Nam that was kind of, they reached out to him, and he came in and I guess looked at this thing, and this is a schematic which shows a cross section of the first floor and second floor, and again, from the diagram here, if you see my cursor, that's the A side. This is, you come up these few steps, you get that little entryway there, first floor there, and then you come into this door, and then the steps start right about back where
Where
this
that
guy is,
firefighter is.
and
Yes.
then they head up this way.
Yes.
Um, now, from looking at this thing, it looks like this was a bad building even without a fire, right? Bad. It
Yes.
wasn't in good shape. It wasn't in good shape even without a fire on it, right? And then you add
Without
a
the fire,
fire.
without the hoarding conditions inside. Yes.
Yeah, and then we add a fire, and then we add whatever, how many. I know it didn't sound like you flowed a lot of water because you kept losing water, but you add all that water, and then you add the firefighters and stuff. It wasn't
The
good.
interesting thing about the water, and I didn't think about this until somebody brought it up afterwards. We're used to seeing water going somewhere, coming out of the front door, going out of the back somewhere. I don't remember seeing water flowing out of the front door. So the contents of that place sucked up all that water that we were flowing in there.
Yeah, yeah, and so again, listeners, go get the report. Look at that. It definitely does a really good job of talking about the structure. Also, I guess one of the things I saw was, like, was that an a- after it was built, they ran that gas line, so they notched in the floor joists, or was that, you think that was done?
That was after. They said they did that in about early 1900s, late 1800s, when they put the gas service in these houses. And that was everyone's that was the smoking gun for a while. But they found it in houses all
Yeah.
over, especially this area of the city. And we've been fighting fires in houses like this since they were built. So initially it was the smoking gun, but it turned out to be less of a factor than initially thought.
Well, I definitely, again, reading the report, is this one of those houses where they use our services a lot? Like, did you go there for EMS runs?
I
Because
had
it looked like in the report, there were some quotes that said that the mortar was falling out of the bricks. That there was some other structural things that I guess maybe neighbors had reported, or even, I guess, firefighters that had been there before had noticed that this place was in bad shape.
Yeah, it definitely was in need of repair. But this being 45's local, I don't ever recall being here before. I'm not sure how many times they had been there, how many times, the fire company had been there.
Yes. So I guess then it says what, the hour, half hour to hour time to rescue, to get Matt out of the collapse.
Right.
Yeah, and tough stuff there. Tough stuff. Here's some pictures here. You can see that's an estimate, right, of where everything happened. It looks like on the picture, the top left picture, you can kind of make out the stairs that
Right.
were going up there. And again, if you guys aren't familiar with the row house, you come in, you got a few steps to get to the bottom of the steps that go up, and then the basement steps are behind that run underneath. You can see over here where just the massive damage from that collapse, and it was going to be tough for anybody to survive that collapse if you're underneath of it. So this is from your report. Looks like some of the things that we contribute. But I think again, from what we're talking to you about, that we can hear, like we can hear already what some of the contributing factors. Right? It was pack rat conditions, clutter conditions in the house. Again, the structural integrity of the dwelling. Yes, weather was impacted, but we know we take extra steps during those weather events to make sure that we get that. The water supply thing, again, it sounds like you guys were thinking about that, especially if you're going to go out and practice with the flares. I haven't done that before, but I have seen that those pictures and stuff of people doing that. So water supply in this thing, which normally the water supply is good there, right? But because of the frozen hydrants, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of us, think we don't have the resources for a thawing unit. So it's just a matter of us, either two things have to happen. We either have to figure out how to work with it, or we have to slow down until we establish a substantial water supply. So I think that, in these cold months, I would hope that guys are out there now trying new things, to you either fix it or you move on and find something that works, find a hydrant that works. So hopefully we're trying to find ways to fix this, because you don't want to run into a situation where your third, your fourth, and your fifth hydrant isn't good.
No, absolutely. And then your report has some recommendations for future stuff, lack of standardized training program in the PFD. Really, is that from like a company standpoint, or because I definitely have standardized recruit classes, right?
Right. It's more of a continuing education component. It was tough for a while to get companies to the academy first to develop a curriculum and then deliver it to every firefighter across 4 platoons. It was tough, but unfortunately it took an incident like this to happen, but we are getting better. We have a field training unit now. They have a course catalog where a company officer could call up and say, hey, can you come and drill my guys with this? And they'll come down and they'll bring the 4th century trainer, they'll bring the reduced profile trainer. So it's unfortunate that it took this fire to happen for us to get this stuff. But I mean, you could also call that another piece of Matt's legacy, to where we're training and guys are thinking about him.
Yeah. You knew that if he was going to leave a mark, it would definitely be on training, right?
Absolutely.
Need to increase on-duty and staff resources. You think more companies?
I think that during inclement weather, I think we should have more companies. I would like to see those 2 special call engines sent out just to help you find those hydrants, because it's going to be manpower intensive. If you think I'm already on my 4th hydrant, I've stretched the hose line to 3 bad hydrants already, you might need that extra set of hands to help you get in service quicker.
Yeah, understood. We just had a weather event last week where I work now, and we upstaffed, and we had some brush trucks, to help with getting units into areas, ambulances and things like that. So it was nice to have some breathing, right? Some additional help, especially in that. I can see that. Need to improve, update, and standardize technology, equipment, and policies so they're realistic and practical in modern fire service. It sounds like a epidemic there with older fire departments, right? We continue to kind of use old techniques that worked. They definitely worked, but as society has evolved, our fires have evolved. We need to evolve, right?
one of my favorite sayings is firemen hate two things: change and the way things are. So there's a need. You could go through here and pick out things that needed to get changed. I think there's a way to do it. You got to bring everybody to the table and kind of find the best way. I mean, nothing's going to change. We're an aggressive interior attack fire department. That's the way we put fires out. Nobody's going to change that like that. So I think once you get over the initial fear of, we're going to change the way we do things, I think there's room for improvement. I don't think anybody's perfect. I always think there's ways to do things better. We just have to be realistic and honest with ourselves as what we're willing to do, not only for ourselves, but really for the citizens. I mean, that's, if there's a way to do things, I don't want to call it service delivery, but if there's a way to put out fires better for the civilian, then we owe it to them to look into that.
Right. We have a duty to do that, right? I think
Absolutely.
that's where I hate to say change. I like evolution, right? So let's evolve. Let's
Right.
evolve
I think it's better.
to that. But no, yeah. And I mean that everybody. It's not going to be like we're going to evolve and stop. We need to continue, right? We need to continue to progress as new things come out, as new challenges and so on. Yeah. The last was the need to reallocate, redistribute, and better define the roles, responsibilities, and resources in the PFD to improve operational readiness and response. That sounds big. Like, did you move some companies around? Maybe.
So at this point, I believe that the divisions and the battalions had already been realigned. What I think this led to was a better defined role for our UCLO, our Uniformed Communications Liaison Office. That's a battalion chief that works with our fire communication dispatchers and is just kind of a subject matter expert. We have great dispatchers, and the dispatchers did a great job on this fire, keeping track of the companies and answering the Maydays and making sure people knew where they were. But having that uniformed presence down there that can kind of speak the lingo and knows what the chief's thinking on that fire ground and kind of listen for the escalation of an incident and say, hey, let's move companies closer or get ready for this. And so that's what one of the things that came out on the back end was clear defined roles of the UCLO and what they're able to do now as opposed to before. And it was a new position before. So it's not like they weren't allowed to do things. It was just so fresh that it might not have been thought of at the time.
Gotcha. It looks like you guys, again, I've seen you had, you guys did a lot with the fireground survival training, right? The IAFF fireground survival. Did everybody go through that?
So at the time, no, everyone did not go through it. We had just finished the train the trainer for that. I was one of the instructors for that, and we had finished that. I want to say in December, we had finished that. So we were getting ready to deliver that course.
Oh, before the fire.
Right. Yeah, we had done the train the trainer course before the fire, and we were getting ready to deliver it department wide soon after Colorado shoot.
Good. What other? I did see you guys brought the UL boot camp, the fire behavior, fire dynamics boot camp up there. Yeah. How many of your people went through that?
Oh, there was a bunch of us. I want to say there was about 40 people that were in that class with us. There were guys from every part of the city in there. That was a good time. I like networking with people. I like finding out how people do it in different parts of the world. So it was good to network with them, and then the information that you're getting, it makes sense and it makes it easier to deliver that information. When you have a solid background in it. So it was fun to sit in that class, and that was at the Delaware County Public Safety Training Center, where Matt was an instructor. So it was, again, bringing that full circle, where Matt's always there.
Yeah, and that's a class where the light bulbs come on, right? Where you're just like, wow, you know what? I didn't, and it's all simple stuff, but it definitely drives home the fire behavior and the dynamics. Yeah, it's really, really good stuff there. And then I know I missed out on. I know you guys had the ISFSI basement fire hands-on class there recently. I know a few guys that came up there and taught that. So yeah, that's a really good class. I think I just did it in Fairfax, and going to FDNY in a couple months to do it up there. So that's definitely training that you brought in, and training that you can do your own. In honor of Matt is definitely a great legacy to leave, and won't let him die in vain. Right.
Right.
I really think I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Your account of that is better than any NIOSH or the PFD report. I know I'm sure it had a long-lasting effect, and will change how you do things in the fire service. But really, thank you for coming on. I'm glad that we made a connection. Chief, the commissioner, I reached out to him. He put me in touch with somebody else, and I guess they got to you. So it's awesome. Like you said, the networks really work, and I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me. It's always it's good. It's good for me to get to have the opportunity to talk about it. I think the more people know about what happened, about Matt, it helps me mentally to kind of deal with it. So I think it's all good stuff to get out here and talk about it.
One thing we've done at these things is I ask you guys who are coming on to talk with us, what are 2 or 3 things that you think you want people to get out of this tremendous loss and this incident? What do you think would be a good learning thing to pass on to people?
So the first thing I would say would be, don't take it personal, or don't take it too serious. And I say that as it relates to the rivalry amongst companies. Engine 50 and Engine 45, we had that little rivalry going. But when push come to shove on that fire ground, we were able to put the egos and the pride away, and we were able to work together. And if you read the report, you can see how the personnel gets mixed up on the hose line. And some people might look at that and say, that's crazy how you guys did that. It actually worked. We kind of put the egos aside, and mission accomplishment took a forefront there. So I would say, don't take it personal or too serious. When it's time to get work done, it's time to put in work. Second thing I would say is, know when enough is enough. Don't stick with the decision, or don't stick with a mistake solely because you spent so much time making it. If you see something, if something doesn't look right, feel right, you get the hair on the back of your neck and it doesn't feel right, maybe it's time to change things up. With that being said, like I still, it's kind of tough to look back at that fire ground and pick out things you would do differently. But I think just knowing when enough is enough, I think that's one thing that I'll carry with me forward, moving up with the next rank being battalion chief. And I think that's one thing that'll probably stick with me the most, is not getting too emotionally attached to a fire ground, if that makes sense. And I think the third thing would be respecting that shock factor, or that gut feeling. Like I said, when we pulled up when we walked up the block, the first thing that I remember seeing was that civilian in the street. And it kind of shocked me. So there was no way of telling what was going to happen just from that one instance, but maybe paying a little more attention to those shock factors, or that gut feeling further on down the line. I think I'll do that.
I think those are great. Those are really good. I like the second one where I can see that. I think I've been there too. It obviously wasn't as it didn't lead to a death, but right, you make a decision and you think, this is what we're going to do, and you stick with it even though it's bad, and you keep pushing that. That's good. I really appreciate those things, and hopefully everybody can take that with them. It's good to really meet somebody who was close friends with Matt and can be able to pass that on. I want to wrap up today. If you take a couple minutes, let's talk about this here. the Monday, we talk about not building concerns more than construction necessarily. When I was prepping for this, we used this previously too when we looked at the Matt's incident when the report came out, and reached out to James Johnson from the Vancouver Fire Department, who, if you've been kind of paying attention to fire service social media and things like that over the last few years, you've seen James. He came out with a lot of building construction stuff. He's got a built environment podcast that he does for fire engineering. If you get a chance, see James, go see his show, go listen to him talk. But I wanted to look for something. I was raised on Francis Brannigan and building construction for the fire service, and it's a great information. While it's great, the book can be kind of dry and maybe it's an older read, right? So I'm trying to think what kind of, maybe we had a Gen Z or a Gen Xer out there that can do it, and James kind of fits that, I think. Younger guy, really into the building construction, and he came up with this. While all these things, other things matter. These four matter the most. Where you can, if you're looking at one of your buildings in your area, look at these things: the size, the materials, the age, and the use. If you think back on some of the Mayday Mondays we've done, and if you think about some of the fires we've had where we've lost people in the fire service, definitely size of a building. I was just reading about, if you guys remember the Bryan, Texas incident where we lost two firefighters. One was a RIT firefighter going in to rescue somebody else, and it was a Knights of Columbus, I think, Knights of Columbus Hall, and they got there and had fire showing. Well, it's a bigger building. It's a pretty good sized place, and they stretched a single attack line, and void spaces and things like that. The fire can get bad. So the size of the building. Or think about Nathan Flynn from Howard County and that building. That was a huge single family dwelling house. I think about the Captain Laird we lost in Frederick County, Maryland. Same thing, a big single family dwelling where it's different than a lot of our places that we go to. So the size can be a problem. Materials, again, whether it's a wood frame, a lightweight wood frame, whether it's a lightweight, metal buildings, whether it's old wood buildings. And again, I've been in those row houses that these guys are talking about here, and you really felt comfortable in them because they were built so solidly, and you could work for days in those buildings. So, but we have to think about the age. Age is important. Think about the difference between an old building and a new building. An old building, while it can be solid, it can also be something like we saw here in Philly, where it was built in the 1880s, I think, 1880s, and had not had great maintenance over those 100+ years. So it was in a condition where it was the fire didn't make it that much worse. It was really bad condition to begin with. But then think about new stuff, right? New stuff's could have crazy materials. It could have void spaces. It could have all kinds of other stuff in there that we're dealing with. So while it may not be a collapse thing, it might be void space fires and chasing them around the building to try and find them. And then the use, right? I got whether it's a residential building, like look at this one in Philly, it was residential, but it was almost like a storage place because they had so much stuff in there. I remember going to a fire years ago. It was in DC. It was on a fourth floor of an apartment building. And as we're going in, the building superintendent goes, "Hey, there's a lot of debris in there." Well, when we get in there, and it was stacked top to bottom. And it was basically a storage place for the people who lived on the first floor. They had a consignment shop, and they stored the stuff in this apartment on the fourth floor. So use of it can be difficult for us as well. Think about a lot of these crazy warehouses and stuff that are coming up, the data centers, things like that. The use of these buildings can be an impact. So while again, I do want you to go read Frank Brannigan's, building construction books and get into that stuff. Look at what James Johnson here is doing with this stuff: size, materials, age, and use. And when you pull up to a building, think about those four things and how they can impact your firefight and the operation you're getting ready to embark on in that building. So that really takes us through this month's Mayday Monday. Again, that's what we wanted you to focus on. The skill drill for this month is just kind of practice the size up using those 4 building construction things. Go around your area and look at some of these buildings. Highlight some of these ones that you might want to put into your books or pass on to people right on your whiteboard in the firehouse. Hey, look out for this one because it's old or it's falling apart or whatever. Do that. Get out there and look at some of these buildings. Practice this stuff. But again, thank you, Devon. Thank you, Philadelphia Fire Department. Thank you. Tell the commissioner that you were great. That he really hooked me up with the right guy to talk about this fire. Thank you to everybody that tunes in. And again, remember Matt and his contributions to the fire service. And that's it for this Mayday Monday. We'll see you back in February.